Good evening. Thank you for joining us today for the K Street Transitway Project Final Design Virtual Public Meeting. My name is Alexis Robinson, and I'll be the facilitator this evening. We will start the meeting in about 2 minutes. Again, welcome to the K Street Transitway Project Final Design Virtual Public Meeting. Before we dive into the presentation, I would like to review a few meeting reminders. First, this meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the K Street Project website and DDOT's YouTube page. It is also being streamed to DDOT's Facebook page. If you need technical assistance during the meeting, please contact Molly Burns at 202-309-3491. Next slide, please. To ensure this meeting flows smoothly and we get a chance to hear from everyone, please adhere to the following guidelines. Please try to save all questions for the Q&A portion of the meeting. You may request to speak by either typing your name in the Q&A or raising your hand. This feature will be reviewed momentarily. You will also enter your comments and questions in the Q&A. Please be respectful to others and keep your speaking time to no more than 1 minute so other community members can share their feedback. Next slide. During the meeting, you will not be able to unmute yourself. You will have an opportunity to speak during the Q&A period. Our team will unmute you if you wish to speak. If you want to speak, you may either raise your hand or type your name in the Q&A. You will not be able to share your video during this meeting. Only those who are panelists and presenters will be able to share their video. If you have questions during the presentation, please send it during the Q&A feature. If you're using the WebEx meeting application, click on the 3 dots in the bottom right side of the WebEx window and select Q&A. In the Ask field, select All Panelists. Click the text box to type your question and press the Enter key to send it. If you joined via browser or web app, click the question mark icon to access the Q&A to ask a question. We will do our best to answer all of your questions during the Q&A portion of the meeting. If we do not get to your question during this meeting, we will respond after the meeting. Next slide. I would also like to add, if you are on the phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 to raise your hand. Now I will turn the presentation over to Wayne Wilson, the DDOT project manager, for project team introductions.
Thank you, Alexis. Good evening. My name is Wayne Wilson, and I'm the DDOT project manager for the K Street Transitway Project. This evening, we will be presenting the final design for the K Street Transitway Project. DDOT, the consultant team, are enthusiastic to share how we have addressed concerns that have been raised and accomplished the goals of the project. Next slide. With us today, we have Robin Jackson, who is the Deputy Program Manager for DDOT, along with Hunte Kim, who is the Program Manager for DDOT Team 1. We have Alexis Robinson, who have you met, and we have Jerry Baxter from JMT and Adrian McCray from Lee & Associates. I'll hand it over to you, Jerry.
Thank you, Wayne. This evening, we will present the following information. We will start by providing a brief overview of the project, and then we're going to focus a lot of our discussion on the updates that have been made to the project since our last public meeting, which was earlier this year in March. At that time, we were at 65% design, and since then, in the last 9 months, we've taken feedback from that meeting, as well as feedback from stakeholders, including bids and A&Cs, and have addressed and advanced the project to final design. Design of the project is complete, and we're happy to present the final plan here tonight. Adrian will then discuss some of the streetscape and landscape elements that have been incorporated in the project due to feedback we've received. We will also discuss the proposed construction phasing and the impacts that can be anticipated by people in the area. Finally, we will provide the next steps and anticipated timeline for where things go from here. And then at the end, we will have ample time for comments and questions. While the design is complete, stakeholder input has been a key part of this project, and we're eager to address your comments and questions. So this is a major infrastructure project in the heart of downtown. And before we get into the details, I think it is important to focus on the why for the project and start with the goals that we are proposing to address, as Wayne noted. First of all, K Street will be reconfigured and reimagined to be more efficient for all users. The project is focusing on addressing all different types of users of K Street. It's truly a multimodal project. The following benefits will come from the new approach to K Street. First and foremost, an improvement in safety along the corridor. This is in line with DDOT's Vision Zero initiative and focuses on the most vulnerable users of the system, which are pedestrians and cyclists. This is a transit project at its core, and transit operations will greatly improve along the corridor. This will benefit travel around downtown and the entire transit network, as improved operations in the core will ripple out through the network. This project is also a strong commitment for DDOT to transit. The transit improvement will also benefit personal vehicular travel. Separating out the transit movements will allow vehicular traffic to operate more efficiently, reducing travel times along the corridor. And then as a major infrastructure project, significant emphasis has been placed on the streetscape and landscape elements of the project, which we're happy to present. So the transitway limits are from 21st Street at the western end to 12th Street at the eastern end. K Street is a major east-west street located right downtown. The surrounding area has very dense commercial developments and a high volume of pedestrian activity. There are also numerous bus routes along the corridor that will be incorporated into the transitway. To give a frame of reference, there's also 3 parks along the corridor: Farragut Square, McPherson Square, and Franklin Park. And then as part of the proposed design, there will be 4 pairs of transit stops along the corridor. These will be west of 19th Street, west of Connecticut Avenue, east of 16th Street, and west of 14th Street, evenly spaced along the corridor. And then one thing that's very important to note, this project is building face to building faced. While it is a transit project focused on the roadway, we've extended our limits to the outside to do a full streetscape landscape project, including sidewalk upgrades. So to give a little more reference of what we are proposing, so the existing configuration on K Street is inefficient with service lanes on the outside. This creates operational and safety concerns due to the weaving of traffic and number of conflict points along the corridor. We think our proposed layout will greatly improve these operations and safety. As shown on the screen, this is a typical section for the corridor, and kind of working from the center out. The new configuration will consist of 2 travel lanes in the center of the roadway, 1 per direction. Adjacent to those travel lanes will be 11-foot wide medians These will have bus platforms at the 4 locations identified before, and then elsewhere they will have landscaping and bioretention, a real emphasis on trees and green space. Next to those medians will be 2 protected bike lanes, 1 per direction on each side, and these will be protected from traffic on both sides. They will be protected from the median on the left and then the general traffic on the right. The bike lanes for this project will extend from 20th Street to 11th Street. There they will each connect with existing facilities at the end of the corridor. So the idea here was to travel the bikes to a place where they can connect in with other facilities. Outside of the bike lanes will be 2 travel lanes per direction, and where space permits on the south side of K Street, which is shown on the left side of the image on the screen, is parking, pickup drop-off, and loading zone. These will generally be at the eastern and western ends of the corridor. The same approach is carried through at the parks. We have the same number of transit lanes, travel lanes, and bicycle lanes. The condition at the parks is that DDOT does have a more narrow right-of-way there. If you're familiar, the parks extend to the north. So what we had to do to address that was reduce the size of the medians between the transit lanes and the bike lanes that are shown on the screen. So we will not be able to have green space and trees in that area. And looking at this, I think it is one thing that is important to note is we are adding additional modes of transportation along the corridor. We're taking what's out there today and adding dedicated transit lanes as well as the bike lanes to really improve operations through here. So as I've said, this is a transit project, and the bus facilities are a major component of the project. There will be 4 pairs of bus stops along the corridor, each with a very similar design. The platform will be 11 feet wide and will include shelters, benches, and amenities such as trash receptacles, lightings, trees, leaning rails, and real-time signs to give information about arriving buses. The bus shelters shown here on the screen are conceptual. Those will be procured through a separate contract, and there will be more opportunity for stakeholder input on them. Right now, they are just shown conceptually for how they will work. A couple other details of the platforms and how they will operate. The platforms are designed to be 10 inches high, as opposed to the standard 7-inch high curb. This will allow for easier boarding on and off the buses. And then access to the medians will be similar to how the medians are accessed today, but with some enhanced safety features. Median nose islands have been proposed at the end of the platform for enhanced pedestrian safety, and there will also be accessible pedestrian signals with new marked crosswalks. The design for these features are in compliance with the NACTO guidelines, which is the National Association of City Transportation Officials, and really designed to the latest best practices in downtown urban transit development. The buses along the corridor will utilize transit signals, which will be used to guide them separate from vehicular signals to reduce the possibility for confusion. As I think I've noted, public outreach has been a major component of this project, and tonight is one more step in that process. We presented our 65 design back in March. Since that time, we've held dozens of meetings with project stakeholders, and in particular, the BIDs, or the Business Improvement Districts. We've also met with and presented to the ANCs, or the Advisory Neighborhood Committees, and the Commission of Fine Arts. Regular coordination has occurred with WMATA regarding transit routing and the design of the project, as well as SHPO, Urban Forestry, and the National Park Service. All these stakeholders have seen the plans and had an opportunity to provide their comments. Extensive coordination has also occurred with different groups within DDOT, including the Vision Zero team, which is focused on safety, the Curbside Management Division, which focuses on the maximum use and best use of curbside space, Transit Delivery Division from a transit and bus routing perspective, the Active Transportation Group, which is focused on pedestrians and bicycles, and lastly, the Traffic Engineering Safety Division, which is focused on safety and operations of the system. So all of these stakeholders' input have been provided and incorporated into the design. As I noted, I'm now happy to present some of the project updates that have been made result of this stakeholder coordination. One of the first comments we heard about was enhanced pedestrian safety, and in particular, the number of pedestrians near Connecticut Avenue and the Farragut North Metro Station. As a result of this feedback, we've been able to bump out the curb, as shown on the image on the right, to provide additional pedestrian space in this area. So this will provide space for pedestrians to stand. It will also reduce the crossing length across both Connecticut Avenue and K Street and make those crossings perpendicular, which will make pedestrians more visible and also reduce the walking distance. Sticking with pedestrian safety, we've also widened the size of the raised islands that are proposed adjacent to the crosswalks, as shown on the image on the right. So those two islands on the right side image were previously 4 feet wide. They've now been designed to be 5 feet wide. And the layout of those did factor into turning movements of vehiculars, so they will be clear of the turning movements, but still provide that additional safety. We've also incorporated leading pedestrian intervals, which means the pedestrian walk signals will come up in advance of the vehicular signals. This is a feature used throughout the district. Will again increase safety and give priority to the pedestrians. Another major factor in the design of the project was considering bicyclists. We've heard a lot of comments about bicycle operations and safety, and we've been able to make some updates to address that. First of all, we've added raised island to protect the bicycle box along the corridor. So as you can see on the image on the right, we have the median noses for the pedestrian crosswalk, and then we have the 2-stage turn boxes, which are the green boxes with the bike signals, symbols, and the arrows. And then to the right of that, there are concrete blocks to further protect them. We've also added bicycle signal heads along the corridor, which will improve the bicycle operation. And then one area in particular we looked at was the operations at 12th Street and how those bicyclists get in and out of the transitway. And we revised our signal phasing at that location to improve the safety and operation at that location. Other factors considered or other updates made relative to bicyclists is we've added a turning space for cyclists at intersections. This is somewhat similar to the center running bike lanes on Pennsylvania Avenue, if you're familiar. And at crossroads that do not have their own bicycle facilities, cyclists will use the crosswalks to get into and out of the cycle track or the bike lanes along K Street. We think that will be a safety feature that has been incorporated. The 2-stage turn boxes or bike boxes will remain where there is an existing facility, but not the other locations, which is consistent with best practices. We've also heard a lot of comments about green space along the corridor, and a couple areas we've been able to do to reduce the amount of paved area has been to first remove the left turn lane at 21st Street from the transitway. At 65%, we had a left turn lane in the median area there. Through working with the Transit Delivery Division, WMATA, and bus routing, we've been able to eliminate the need for that turn lane. And the result of that is we've been able to enlarge the medians. By enlarging the medians, we're creating more green space, which will be a benefit for the corridor. As shown on the image on the left, we also have pull-off areas for accessing the medians. Since 65, we've been able to reduce the size of them to really shrink them down to the bare minimum they need to be. And we've also moved them closer to the platform to connect them in there and really limit the amount of area that is paved in that area. So a couple improvements to really focus on the green aspects of the project. Curbside management has been another major part of the project that has been ongoing from the beginning and is an ongoing process. So using that dedicated curb space as efficiently as possible is most important and has taken a lot of stakeholder input. So we've had a curbside management plan that has continually been updated and refined based on that feedback. The curbside plan addresses the limited space we do have along the curb, and as shown on this hierarchy here on the screen is how we've approached that. First and foremost, we want to make sure we provide the adequate ADA parking along the corridor. After that, there's definitely a focus on using the curb space for dynamic uses for loading, pickup, drop-off, focusing on turnover and getting as many people to use that space as possible. So this plan has been developed and refined through stakeholder coordination and will provide a dynamic curb space along the corridor. And then taking all these together, we've heard feedback to really try and create a great street. We wanted to make something special. And in order to do that, we had to look at the project holistically. There's a lot of different stakeholders with different interests and priorities, and we've really tried to balance them and fit them into a way that makes for a great street and addresses the needs of everyone. This has been done through that stakeholder coordination that I know I've referenced a couple times. We've also looked at adjacent projects in the corridor. There's a bike project on 11th Street that's been considered and how that goes. WMATA is looking to refine their bus network. We've incorporated that, and K Street Transitway is an input of that. So this project has tried to take the different elements and look big picture about how we can create a holistic approach for upgrading the street. And now Adrian will share a little more about some of the streetscape elements.
Thank you, Jerry. So the K Street Transitway public realm pedestrian experience is critical for the activation and economic health of the corridor. You can change this next slide. This is a major part of the goal for the improvements for this project. And since our last presentation, as Jerry mentioned, we've had ongoing engagement with stakeholders, agencies, and the utility companies. And we've also taken your previous feedback into mind, and through that, we focused our design refinements on the following. One, really enhancing that green corridor by increasing the number of trees and the canopy coverage. We're increasing the amount of sidewalk replacement to really create a more unified material palette. And we've also developed an enhanced pavement design to create a unique look for K Street. And we're integrating additional site furnishings to include future art carpet locations. Next slide. One of the big factors we've previously shared that has had a large impact on where our trees are going to be placed are those existing utilities. And so as you can see, the dense utility infrastructure makes not only planting trees a challenge, it's also limiting how utilities can be shifted because of the offset and safety requirements. Just simply isn't a lot of room here, but our team has been working with the utility companies on some design strategies to allow us to get more trees in the corridor. Next slide. And as a result, our overall tree canopy coverage is now achieving 38%, which significantly contributes to the overall citywide goal, canopy coverage goal of 40%. We are maintaining 95% of the existing street trees that are located in the sidewalk zones. And with the new expanded medians and sidewalk infill trees, we're planting 193 new trees. The existing sidewalk tree boxes will be a typical 6-foot width, and then where we can extend the length of the boxes in the sidewalks, we're going to do that. Next slide. So the medians are where we had that largest utility impact. And the ways we're mitigating, and we've worked with the utility companies, are one way is we're mounting up the trees to give us a little bit more clearance from those existing utilities. And then we're also incorporating root barrier protection at the below the tree soil in order to protect that infrastructure below. In some of the locations where we don't have the utility conflicts, we're incorporating low impact development strategies to capture and treat the stormwater runoff from the roadway. Next slide. So our project will also include sidewalk replacement, as Jerry said. And so we're going to be replacing the sidewalk with the exception of some of those areas where there's special paving that was installed by the property owners. It's in good condition. Our sidewalk pavement enhancements include the integration of additional paving color in the tree pit zone, and that'll help define that edge and also create a unique look for the corridor. And through these design enhancements, we've been coordinating with the bids and in order to capture their feedback on what we're proposing. Next slide. And so our project is also incorporating more benches and bike racks throughout the corridor. We're looking at a special bench that the downtown bid has selected, and we'll be integrating that into the streetscape. Next slide. And we've also received feedback from the bids that they'd like to incorporate future public art locations. So we've identified with working with them where those locations would be, and we're incorporating additional foundation work for the future artwork, as well as power connections to that to the locations. And that way, when the artwork is installed at a later time, it's not going to have to really disrupt or tear up the streetscape that's been installed. And in this slide, we're also showing how, we're in the lower right, how we're expanding on those tree boxes in those places that we can, where we're lengthening them and then widening them out to 6 foot. Next slide. And I'm going to turn this back over to Jerry now.
Thanks, Adrian. I will now review how the project is anticipated to be constructed. So construction sequencing plans, also referred to as maintenance of traffic plans, have been developed to enable the contractor to safely and efficiently construct the project. These plans have considered, first and foremost, pedestrian access to businesses, residents, and crosswalks, and then vehicular access along the corridor, while maintaining a safe environment for both pedestrians, travelers, and the contractors. So it is important to note that the contractor may propose their own modifications to those plans, and when those proposed modifications are made, they will be reviewed and held to the same standard as the plans we've developed. When a contractor is on board, which is anticipated to be this summer, there will be an additional public meeting that can get a little more into the details of how the project will be proposed to be constructed. And lastly, during construction, information will be shared with the public through websites and other means similar to other projects. So the approach we've laid out for our design is to break the project up into 3 segments. And the idea being here, let's minimize the impact time along the corridor and focus in one area, get that work done, and then have the contractor move on to the next area. So the first proposed segment will be from 21st Street to Farragut Square, which is at the western end of the project. So the idea being that the contractor will work in this area and will not have to disrupt the rest of the corridor while this work is being done. When that work has been completed, the contractor would then move on to segment 2, which would be from Farragut Square to McPherson Square, which again, the work will be focused in this area during that time. And then at the end, the last segment will be segment 3, which will be from McPherson Square to 12th Street, which is where the transitway will end. And then there are some minor updates between 12th and 11th to connect the bike lane through, as I noted before. So we think this 3-segment approach will minimize the impact to local businesses, residents, and people in the area. We anticipate the duration of each segment will take about a year to a year and a half, and the total construction along the whole corridor will be about 3.5 years. So where do things go from here? So as I noted, our final design is complete in December, and starting early next year, construction procurement will start occurring, and that's where DDOT will get a contractor to build the project. It is important to note we have been doing a lot of utility coordination, as Adrian showed on the screen. There's utilities everywhere in this corridor. Unfortunately, there's not a great place to relocate them, which is why we have been limited. But in the cases we have, we're working with those utilities to do advanced relocation plans. They will start this spring, and the idea is to get those utility relocations out of the way before our contract construction starts. Our construction is anticipated to start late this summer and go from there. And as I noted, there will be a pre-construction meeting in the summer before the contractor starts. And at that time, the contractor can present a little more of the details of what they are proposing. So information about the project, we have a project email, which is shown on the screen here, and then a project website. As Alexis noted, a copy of this presentation will be posted there, as well as any other project updates. Information up until now has been posted there so far. And I will now ask Alexis to take back over. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. We will now begin the Q&A portion of our presentation. As a reminder, please use the raise hand to request to be unmuted and to ask your question, or the Q&A feature to submit your question to the panelists. I'm going to unmute Commissioner Judy. You can go ahead with your question.
Good evening. My name is Judy Floyd. I'm ANC Commissioner 1B06, which is north of this area. My question is about what happens when it snows. I'm looking at the bicycle lane, I'm looking at the bus lanes and can envision piles of snow occurring in the bus stops. The current configuration is also troublesome because it's very hard to reach the median. The north-south snowplows leave a trail right on the ramp as you try to get into that median to board the bus. I'm not sure how this all works.
Thank you for your question on maintenance during snow. I'm going to turn this over to Jerry for an answer.
Thank
Or
Yes. Go ahead. Wayne, you want to take this one? You may be better.
Yes, so DDOT does have a snow emergency plan kind of for the city. So K Street is one of the main arterials that we have snow plows deployed, as well as the bike team for DDOT uses a small John Deere tractor to clear the bike lanes. The stops are planned and always maintained for access salted. So the team has been prepared for K Street as we do the city, and we are preparing for a snow emergency plan to provide access for the new configuration.
thank you, Wayne. Gabrielle, I'm going to unmute you and you can ask your question.
I think I'm frozen. Can you hear me, Adrian?
We can hear you.
Okay. I was just curious to know, I'm a contractor with Dynamic Concepts, and we work with Pepco, and we've done some work on K Street. Probably I'm going to say between 15th and 17th Street, not too long ago. Is that work now going to all change, or was that work, with the mindset of maybe this upcoming project?
So I guess if you want, I can jump in on that, Alexis. So we have been coordinating extensively with utilities, in particular Pepco, learning about what lines they have out there now, which ones have been recently installed, and which ones are coming in the future. I know some of the work we are looking at is at the eastern end of the project, I guess the middle to the eastern around 17th Street. I'm not sure exactly which lines you're referring to and whether they are impacted or not. We do not have that many relocations. We've tried to minimize it due to really the space constraints, but that has been coordinated. And I think most importantly, we're looking at those future projects to make sure once we finish, they don't have to come back a year later and do something.
All right, thank you, Jerry. We have one question in the Q&A from Cheryl Court. What is the planned caliper of the trees in the median? And I'll direct this to Adrian McCrae.
So the proposed caliper tree would be 2 to 2.5 inches based on the DDOT planting specification, and that's the desired tree caliper for all street trees. And the reason for that is they don't want to put in anything that's going to be too oversized with a large root ball, because one, it's harder to shift it to get it into place, and then two, we don't want to have something that won't fit with the utility conflicts.
Thank you, Adrian. We have another raised hand. Hannah Denham, I'll unmute you. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hannah Denham, I'm a reporter with the Washington Business Journal. I just have two quick questions. Can you explain the reason for the delay on selecting a contractor and starting construction? And what's the total cost of this project, construction and design included?
Thank you for that question. I'll go ahead and direct that to DDOT. Wayne.
Yes. There is no delay in selecting a contractor for the project. The project has just completed the final design as of December, and we are having a public meeting. So we have not moved to the stage of selecting a contractor. for the project. But the overall budget for the project is around 80 million.
Thank you, Wayne. We have another Q&A question from William Breckley. If you didn't break up the construction into segments, would it take less time to build the project? If so, how much? And Jerry, I'll direct this question to you.
So thank you. That is a good question. That's definitely something we've looked into. And one of the main drivers of how long it takes a project to be constructed is how much workspace we give the contractor at a time. So if we allowed the contractor to, work the whole corridor at once and close, one whole side or the other whole side, that theoretically would be the most efficient. But we have to balance that with the needs of everyone along the corridor. So we'll typically limit the contractor to working in, say, 2 or 3 blocks at a time. So with that, the segmented approach, we don't think will add significant amount of time. There may be slight differences, but really, since the contractor has to be limited to only working in a certain area at a time, we don't anticipate it would add significant time to the contract at all.
Thank you, Jerry. While we give a few more minutes for people to type questions into the Q&A or raise their hands, I want to say, when the meeting ends, you'll be redirected to DDOT's Title VI Public Meeting Participant Questionnaire. This questionnaire is used to obtain information to help DDOT ensure that we are informing the public and conducting our meetings in compliance with Title VI. If you are joining us by phone or want to write down the link to the form so you can complete it, the URL or web address is rebrand.ly/K Street Virtual Meeting 2022-comments. The project comments and concerns can also be submitted through the form, and we appreciate your responses. We have another Q&A from Cheryl Court. What is the status of the laybys, and are they still part of the plan? What is the justification for the laybys? And I'll direct that to you, Jerry.
Thank you. The laybys came through coordination with WMATA and allowed their maintenance staff and others access to the platforms for when they need to do work. So they are designed for a pickup truck, I guess, just to be clear. And I think there was some confusion at 65 due to the size. There were some who thought they were for buses. They are not bus size. They are more pickup size. And it's really to allow them to perform maintenance on the platforms and get close enough to be able to access from their truck.
Thank you. And we have another question, a re-ask of a question. Could you repeat the project budget? Wayne, you cut out at the end.
And I could jump in. He said 80 million is the estimated construction budget.
Yeah, to clarify, the project is budgeted for 120 million. Sorry.
Great. Thank you both. Next, we have are the transitway lanes being constructed as compatible with addition of future streetcar tracks and supporting the infrastructure? And that is from Jeff. And I'll direct that to you, Jerry.
Sure. So I can start that, and if Wayne, you want to jump in at all. So the transitways are being designed to not preclude the future streetcar. They are not, sorry. So like, for example, the tracks and supporting infrastructure are not being installed at this time, but it's being designed in a way that it can be added in the future.
Wayne, did you have any follow-up to that response?
No, that's accurate.
Okay, thank you. And a question from Matthew. How many trees were proposed in the 65% plans versus this final design? Adrian McCray.
Off of the top of my head, I don't have that information, we can definitely follow up with a response to that comparison. But we have added a significant amount of trees, primarily in the median, where before we just had a lot of existing utilities that we had conflicts with, and so we weren't showing trees. But we can follow up with that number in our comment responses.
Thank you. I want, no one has their hand raised, so I'll continue with the Q&A. You mentioned the bus shelters will be in a separate contract. Can you elaborate on what that means and what the designs could end up looking like if they're not the same ones used for the regular Metro bus stops? And I will direct that to Wayne.
Yes. The bus stops are being designed by DDOT for another division to make sure that they are still able to be accommodating 11-foot wide medians, but they will be installed with the construction of this project, but they'll be designed under another department within DDOT.
Thank you, Wayne. Our next question, thanks for the presentation. What specific improvements in bus service do you anticipate from this project design? Have you modeled how many more buses WMATA can run, how much faster they will be, or what the reliability gains might be? A corollary question, are the regional commuter buses going to run on K Street? Do you know anything about ridership numbers for those? Thank you. That's from Caitlin. I'll direct this one to Adrienne Emile, and then Jerry, you can add any follow-up.
Thank you, Alexis. Daniel Markham, I believe you have the specific travel times you want to mention.
Yeah, so we did a traffic analysis of the corridor for existing conditions and the proposed build conditions to capture vehicular and transit operations. And so when we looked at the built condition, we were modeling what was planned at the time to be up to 55 to 60 buses per hour per direction in the peak period. And so what we found is that we are seeing a transit travel time improvement of 30 to 40%. That's over existing travel times of 12 to as high as 15 minutes under existing conditions. And so that's accomplished not only because of the transitway, but also by reducing the number of stops on the corridor to those 4 stops that Jerry mentioned earlier in the presentation. And then I'll defer to Wayne if you want to respond to the commuter buses, because I know that's been a topic of conversation. And I believe you may have the latest information on that.
Yes, at this time, with discussion with and our transportation, transit delivery folks, the commuter buses have not been incorporated in transitway. They will use the general purpose lanes. The transitway for this time is only for WMATA and circulator as such.
Thank you, Daniel and Wayne. Our next
Really quick, sorry to answer the question regarding ridership. We did do a quick analysis looking at ridership of the corridor and the bus lines that are planning to run, and they're back to about 70% levels from pre-pandemic levels. So I just want to mention the ridership, and that's just based on WMATA data currently.
Thank you, Adrienne. We have another question from Cheryl. Can we see the technical drawings? I'm concerned that the renderings do not give us enough information about how the median plantings will be implemented. I will direct this to Jerry. Do we have the transection of the corridor?
I guess, Wayne, I saw you pop up. Do you want me to go, or you have something?
Yes, so the plans have been shared with the ANC. We can make the plans available so that you can review the construction documents. Just post your information in the chat, and we will provide design drawings for you. And we can coordinate with the ANC as well.
Okay, I think the information will also be posted to the project website. Next question, we can go to, oh, it keeps telling me people raise their hands and then they put them down. All right, more Q&A. We have a question from Jeff again. The 14th Street and Mass Ave rehabilitations had horrendous issues with public notification and accountability for safe accommodation issues. How will this be handled or not repeat those issues? And I'll direct this to you, Jerry.
Sure. So we are taking the maintenance of traffic design very seriously. So we are using those lessons learned from that project. We actually had a call earlier this week with the project team and DDOT leadership to discuss, things that have gone wrong to make sure they are addressed and incorporated into the contract documents. So I would say we are coordinating with that. We're learning from the other projects, and when we develop the contract documents, which will include specifications that the contractor must follow, it will address these issues.
Thank you. Another question from Cheryl. Has the tree caliper changed from earlier plans? I thought the median tree caliper was 6 inches, not 2 to 3 inches. Smaller trees will take a long time to grow. I'll direct this to Adrienne McCray.
Yeah, so we have not changed the caliper of the median trees from this project from 65 to 100. We've always had the 2 to 2.5 inch caliper, and typically if we wouldn't be able to do a 6-inch caliper tree in this condition because we've got to have a lot of flexibility with making shifts in the field, and you need a lot of heavier equipment in order to move a 6-inch caliper tree. And so we haven't been proposing 6 inches.
Thank you, Adrienne. And last question in the Q&A right now, when the sections are being worked on, will the sections be closed off to traffic completely on K Street?
Thank you. Good question. And I see where that could have maybe been confusing from my slide. But no, the roadway will remain open. The number of travel lanes during the peak hours will be maintained open. There will be off-peak lane closures. Pedestrian access, a lot of detail and requirements have gone into the pedestrian MOT plans or maintenance of traffic plans. So pedestrian access will be maintained to all buildings and facilities along the corridor. So short answer is no. Yes, the roadways will remain open throughout. And the only change will be there may be some cases where, for example, the service lane is closed as they're working in that area. But as far as vehicular and pedestrian access, that will be maintained at all times.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the raised hands. Pedro Alfonso, you're unmuted. Go ahead and ask your question.
One question. This might have been answered already, but all 3 segments is DDOT's intent to make one award for the complete project? That's one question. The other question is, are federal funds involved in this project that small business involvement are under federal DDOT guidelines or local guidelines? And what would be the percentage of small business participation?
I'll direct that question to Wayne.
So for the first question, the project's actually one whole project. It's actually segmented to reduce the impact to the overall corridor. So that's why we have 3 different segments for the whole project. So it is one project. The DBE goal at this particular time has not been set. It is local, but for a CBE, our standard is about 35% for a small business.
Thank you, Wayne. And Mike Smith, you are unmuted. You can ask your question.
And Pedro just asked my question, stole my thunder. I can at least ask the department to consider unbundling a lot of the tasks beyond this project. Please keep that in consideration. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. And I don't see any more questions in the Q&A or hands raised.
I do see one there, Alexis, I think, from Sean. See that?
Oh, it's not showing up for me.
Okay, well, here, I can take it if you want.
Yeah.
Can you explain what this means for mixed mode pedestrian cyclist safety when traveling north-south on 20th, 21st between State and George Washington and Farragut Square metro stops during and after construction? So I guess during construction, we will maintain the bicycle lanes going north-south on the cross streets. So that is built into our staging plans or sequence of construction plans. And then we will have pedestrian detail plans to maintain that pedestrian access, as I noted, to buildings as well as the metro stop. So both modes are considered extensively in our design. I guess in the final condition, we will have full connectivity of the sidewalk to get to the different locations, as well as the bike lanes will be continued north-south and will connect with the new bike lanes on K Street. As I noted, we'll have the 2-stage turn boxes to get in and out where we do have a crossing bike lane.
Thank you, Jerry.
That's the only one I see right now.
All right. Well, I do want to thank everyone for joining us tonight for this meeting. And please complete the Title VI questionnaire. We can stay on for a few more minutes to make sure that we get all questions. As a reminder, this meeting will be posted to the project website as well as other information pertaining to the progress of the project. All right, we have one question from Willie Clark. What happens between 12th and 11th Street, which is not particularly part of the project? I'll direct this to you, Jerry.
Sure. So our transitway, as I noted, runs from 20th to 21st. And in that location, we have the bike lanes adjacent to the median. East of 12th Street, between 12th and 11th, the transit lanes will stop. So there will not be a dedicated transit lanes, and the bike lanes will go to the outside. So there will be one bike lane on each side of the roadway, but it will be along the outside curb. So it's
Thank you, Jerry. And from Caitlin Roger, we have what will happen to cars trying to use K Street during construction? How will that be managed? And I'll direct this to you again, Jerry.
Thank you. So as I think I noted, travel lanes will be maintained on K Street during construction. So during the peak periods, there will be 2 lanes per direction. During the off peaks, which is not the morning or evening rush hour, the contractor will be allowed to close one of the 2 lanes where necessary to complete work. But essentially, the plans have been developed and will allow the contractor to have a work area separate from the travel lane area, so that the cars can be maintained.
Thank you. All right, in seeing no other questions in the Q&A and no hands raised. Oh, okay, here we go. Can you provide a rendering that accurately illustrates the 2.5 caliper at completion? The renderings are showing larger trees. Adrian McCray.
We don't have that right now. We can do that as part of an addendum. We can pick a block and just show a scaled down version of the trees. Just keeping in mind, one of the things urban forestry really the reason why they specify that size, even for street trees where they have more room, is because a lot of times it's more difficult to establish those larger trees in the streetscape. So that is their typical standard for tree planting in the district right now. So I just wanted to note that, but we can provide a diagram that reflects the future calipers that will go in.
Thank you, Adrian. Another question from Caitlin. Even given utility work, it's possible to maintain vehicular access. Jerry, do you want to take it one more time?
Yeah, so, and I think your comment is well received because you're right. There is a lot going on. It's a very congested corridor. We noted the utilities. There's going to be a lot of work going on. But yes, we have developed plans that will maintain vehicular access. So that's part of our design. Within each stage, the construction is broken up into different phases, working in different areas, and then as the work is completed, traffic will be shifted around to, go to the area that was previously completed. So yes, I fully acknowledge there's a lot going on, but we have developed plans to address that.
Thank you, Jerry. I'm going to go to Mike Smith. You are unmuted to ask your question.
Yes, did I hear you state that this meeting will be is recorded and will be posted on your website?
Yes, this
Okay.
meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the project website
When? Tomorrow or
by Friday.
by Friday? Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. And I also see Commissioner Judy, you have your hand raised. You are unmuted.
Should we anticipate metro bus route changes or circular bus route changes on a temporary basis during the construction time?
Thank you. I'll direct this question to Adrian Emile.
Thank you, Alexis. Great question. Currently, we're working with WMATA during the MOT phases. Right now, there's discussion about all buses will not be using K Street and will be off of K Street just to help assist with the construction issues and delay that may be anticipated.
Thank you, Adrian. What is the average age of trees depicted in renderings? Adrian McCrae.
That is more of a, I would say maybe a 10-year projection. 5-10 year projection. It depends on it. It really depends on which tree we're talking about and the growth rate.
Great, thank you. One more question from Caitlin. How will we make sure that Ubers and other ride shares use the designated zones instead of stopping mid-block, which happens a lot, even on busy corridors, and seems like a real safety issue? And I will direct this question to DDOT or
Yes, so for Uber and for enforcement of loading, we are working with the curbside management team, looking at enforcement of how to make sure there's no Ubers or pickup drop off that stop along the corridor. We are providing loading zones and we are providing pickup drop off on the adjacent streets, like 17th, 18th, and 19th. And we have been working with the businesses to ensure that those pickup drop offs work for the corridor.
thank you, Wayne. And another question from Sean. Are there similar projects at the ends of this corridor? And I guess I'll direct that to you again, Wayne.
Are there similar projects at the end of the corridor? I think
Correct.
the closest project that would be adjacent to this would be potentially the Connecticut Avenue decor, but that's far away from this project. There's no project close to this corridor at a particular time, but this project does feed into WMATA's bus network and how they're going to develop that system.
Elaine, I'll jump in a little bit. There is a project on 11th Street, which will be a bike lane project that's sort of similar that will tie into this project. So you'll see that, but not a similar bus lane project.
And thank you, Robin. Commissioner Judy, did you have another question, or is your hand just still raised?
Sorry, no further questions.
Thank you. And another question from Caitlin. What date was the traffic modeling done? And I'll direct that question to DDOT.
Are you good? Or go ahead, Wayne.
So the traffic modeling for the project was done in 2019, which is pre-pandemic. So we do have the maximum amount of volumes counted for the corridor.
Thank you, Wayne. From Howard, Baltimore, as utilities are located in the right-of-way at the will of district, it would be good to look at how other cities have been more progressive with relocating utilities for significant street reconstructions. Another question from Caitlin. Is there any more recent traffic data available? And I'll direct that to Wayne.
Yeah, and I guess we have Daniel here too, Wayne. I don't know. Daniel did our.
Dan, jump in.
So yeah, we have not collected any additional traffic data since the analysis was completed using that. It was December 2019 data, so just before the pandemic. I think that's something that DDOT could look into in the future to do a comparison. But as Wayne mentioned, that 2019 volume data that we used represents what you could consider a worst case condition of traffic along the corridor. But I have heard that the volumes in the area have returned to approximately 85% of what the pre-pandemic conditions looked like, just regionally. That's the statistic I've heard.
All right, thank you, Daniel.
I guess, Alexis, I will just jump in on that utility comment just to kind of address that. As I think I've noted, utility coordination has been really a major, if not the major part of this project. And the issue does become space. Just it's not necessarily a cost of relocating. There's nowhere to put them. So we are doing some of that coordination. Somebody on the call referenced some Pepco lines, and there have been some cases where they are moving them to adjacent streets. So we are doing that. I do think it's a good comment to try and be innovative and come up with those solutions we have. And I think we are trying to do that through our coordination that's been occurring throughout this process.
Thank you, Jerry. One last comment from Caitlin. I think it would be really helpful to get updated data before this project is implemented for a number of reasons, not just anecdata, and also have a vision as to what an optimal volume of vehicular traffic. Seeing no other questions in the Q&A and no hands raised, I again want to thank everyone for joining us this evening, and please submit any comments to the project email and fill out the Title VI questionnaire. Thank you all once again, and we will end this meeting. Have a good evening.